Hey there, guys. I don't think I've talked with you too much about this. One of the projects that I have that's been kind of perpetual has been something that we call the Domination Index. What we're looking at in the Domination Index really is we're trying to figure out how well certain teams, each individual team's performance relative to their league matches up against other all-time great teams or all-time bad teams. Now, we're not just looking here only at the world of won-loss records. Instead, what we're looking at is a little formula that was originally devised by it was Rob Nair and I believe Eddie Epstein was the other guy in a book called Dynasties that came out way back in 1999, I believe, 2000, somewhere around then. Anyway, I'll take you through this really quickly and sort of explain to you how this works, because I know that most of you probably are not fully aware of how this is. And then we'll go ahead and we'll take a look and see what 2023 looks like. So, as always, if you check down below, you'll see on my blog, like I have a whole bunch of write-ups of stuff and you can read it and sort of geek out with me. The way that this works is like this. So we look at each league independently. Should we do that with interleague play? Probably not, but I'm not going to get really deep and complicated. If you have a better formula, then let's hear it and let's talk about it. We'll look at each league independently. We'll look at the number of runs scored for each team and the number of runs allowed. Now, that'll give us a average number of runs scored and runs allowed in each league. You wonder, why are these two different? Well, it's because of interleague play. So interleague play does screw things up a little bit, but not too much. We also want to look at the standard deviation of runs scored and runs allowed for each league. Now, what I do here in LibreOffice Calc / Excel is I have a different tab here that has those calculations in it. The reason why is because if I were going to make this calculation over and over again in this field, it would be so slow. It's already really slow to open this, but it would be so slow that we would be standing here talking for 15 minutes before anything changed and anything could be loaded. So that's unacceptable. The reason why we look at these numbers is because we're looking to see how many standard deviations away this number is from this mean, right? So that's basically what we're looking at. We will take this number minus this number and divide that by the standard deviation, so we know how many standard deviations away we're looking. You take the runs scored standard deviation and the runs allowed standard deviation, and you add the two together. Remember, they can be negative or positive, right? Better than average or worse than average. And from that, you get what the what Nair and Epstein called the SD score. SD score is a really bad name because it doesn't say anything. I call it the Domination Index. What you're looking at is how much did this team dominate over the league. We're not looking at wins or losses. We're not looking at margin of victory. We're just looking at runs scored and runs allowed, nothing else. Right? It's kind of a cool trick and a quick and dirty way of doing this. We don't have to worry too much about making ballpark adjustments. The reason why is because with the domination number, you're looking at both runs scored and runs allowed for each team. So any home field advantage you might have goes away because the other team is also playing in your ballpark. However, if you look only at runs scored or only at runs allowed, that advantage will be there. There's other things I've looked at as well. The gap thing is something I'm interested in, which is how much of a difference is there between this and this. And so it's the absolute value of this minus this. Why absolute value? Because I don't really care which one is bigger. I just care that there's a difference. Now we're going to look at 2023. We'll look at every league. We'll start here with the National League. So we're going to sort this one by the Domination Index number, which is L, and we'll sort it descending. And so that'll give us something. There we go. And you can see the Atlanta Braves end up with a domination index of 2.904. The Dodgers were next with a 2.597 domination index rating. In both cases, these teams had great offenses, and the pitching was not necessarily all the way there. The worst team, by the way, was the Colorado Rockies with minus 3.031. So does that really mean anything? It's kind of hard to say, right? Because, we're talking about like, just a number, right? We need to look and see how that fits in with the entire history of baseball, which we happen to have here. We have this, again, divided up by league. So we'll look here at the National League, data sort, and we'll sort by the domination index, by domination, and we'll make this descending. So when we look at this, you're going to be surprised. I think I may have covered this in an earlier video, but you'll be a little surprised to see that it was the 2022 Dodgers who have the greatest domination index score of all time, and it's not even close. Why? Because they had great pitching and great hitting. That's what it takes. They were better than the 1906 Cubs, who were next, and then 17 Giants, the 1902 Pirates, and on and on. A lot of teams we can talk about. You'll notice here the Dodgers, all in a row. So 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. 2023 is a little bit further down, but it's not that far down. That does mean that, yes, the Dodgers from 2019 to 2023 arguably have one of the greatest, if not the greatest dynasties of all time. If you include 2018, it in fact indeed is the greatest dynasty of all time. And there's no question about it. I mean, nothing comes close. That includes the Yankees of the 50s, Yankees of the 40s, Yankees of the 20s. They don't come close. So keep that in mind. But we are interested not in that. We're interested in finding out where the next 2023 team is, and we'll do a little search. And there they are. Here's Atlanta over in, it says here 30, but it's actually 29th place with their 2.904 rating. How do they compare? Well, right in front of them were the 1915 Philadelphia Phillies, who had a 2.905 rating. Then the Giants of 04, the Orioles of 1898, the 42 Cardinals, 55 Dodgers. You'll see that a lot of these are World Series winners. 1894 Orioles, not thought by many to be one of the greatest teams of all time. They scored 1,171 runs. 1918 Cubs, who most people forget about. They think about the Red Sox that year. 98 Braves, who were an awesome team, and on and on. 2023 Giants were a good team. We'll go here and we'll take a look at the next one. Next time we get 2023, well, let's see here. It's going to show me the wrong column. I'm looking for that Dodgers team. So let's see if we can find this here, looking only through this column. And there they are. 2023 Dodgers ended up in 56th place of all time with that 2.597. Now, the teams around them are not necessarily teams you would think would be some of the greatest teams of all time. I mean, the 1909 Pirates, maybe, right? 94 Expos, though, a team people know well. 77 Philly is also sort of a maybe team. 2017 Dodgers are right there as well, and you can see that they've had this just absolutely tremendous run. So that gives you kind of an idea of what we're talking about when we're talking about these Dodgers. More on them in a later video. Now, in terms of futility, we think a lot about the Oakland Athletics this year, but we forget about the Colorado Rockies. Here they are. They're down there with, I forgot about the 2002 Brewers, I'm sorry, who are below the 98 Marlins. That's pretty bad. That was the year that Selig had the All-Star game in Milwaukee. Remember that one with the let them play chant and all that stuff? The Rockies are enjoying the company of the 1935 Boston Braves, the 1940 Philadelphia Phillies, the 1908 St. Louis Cardinals, the 2015 Atlanta Braves, 1896 Louisville, 1924 Boston Braves, all sorts of memorable teams. This was a bad team. I mean, historically bad because you're close to the end. Now, they're not going to ever get close to the 1899 Cleveland Spiders. That's illegal. But maybe some team will get close to like the 52 Pirates, the 63 Mets, the 2018 Marlins, one of these like really, really bad teams that are forgettable for a reason. Great. There's the National League. Let's go look at the American League. So we're going to go back here. We're going to do the same thing that we just did. First thing we're going to do is we're going to sort this by year. So we go over here to data sort, and we're going to have our column labels. We're going to sort this by year, and we're going to make it descending. That's fine. And that means 2023 will be up at the top. And what you'll be able to see, this is actually already sorted by domination because we just sorted that before. What you'll see is that it was actually Tampa Bay who had the best domination index in the American League. That should be surprising to you, especially if you are a Tampa Bay Rays fan. 2.393 is not necessarily historically good, but this was a better Tampa Bay team than I think most people realize. And they were good because they had very good pitching. That's the thing that was going on. We're going to sort this quickly here by that domination record, and we'll do the same thing again, descending. The reason why is not necessarily because we want to look at Tampa Bay. That 2.393, I guess we'll look at it here for a second. It's not one of the greatest of all time in the American League, I'll tell you that. You have to scroll down a little bit here to find them. You can see all of the New York teams. There's 2.393. Tampa Bay is right here along with the 1920 Cleveland Indians, 1930 Washington Senators, 83 White Sox, 33 Senators, 62 Yankees. It gives you an idea of the sort of team that they were. A good team, yes, but not a dominant team. This is not the 27 Yankees. And now the interesting part is when we go down to the end. So we want to see how those Oakland Athletics were this year, and here they are. the Oakland Athletics ended up almost at the bottom. The only teams worse than the 2023 Oakland Athletics in terms of the domination index were the 1943 Athletics, the 1919 Athletics, that's that famous team that had like a bajillion players. Connie Mack couldn't decide on anyone, and the 1916 Athletics. So I don't know what's going on with this franchise, but this is pitiful. I mean, it's worse than the 96 Tigers, who I think lost more games. This is a horrible, horrible rating because of that offense that was just absolutely incapable of doing anything. Oh, look, here's our friends, the 1908 Highlanders happen to be right up here, so not too far away. What a great team. I mean, I saw some of these teams. I saw this team play. That was a bad team. This team was a lot worse. And we're talking, again, -4 standard deviations away from the mean, or I should say 4 standard deviations to the wrong side of the mean. That's not a good thing, right? We could get into the math behind this, right? We assume that there's a normal curve, and when you look at the domination index, there actually is a normal curve if you were going to graph all of this out. And they are definitely not anywhere close to where they should be in the curve. Great. So now we're going to do something here that you might not fully expect us to do. We are going to look at the Central League in Japan, and we will also look at the Pacific League. The reason why is because we can. And so we'll take a quick look at this. The interesting thing that happens here with the Central League, we'll get to here in just a second. And it's 2 interesting things. First of all, the Hanshin Tigers, who won the Japan Series, had one of the greatest dominant regular seasons in the history of Japanese baseball, and were an excellent team, both in terms of hitting and in pitching, but more so in pitching than anything else. But Chunichi, the Dragons, are the team that we really care about, and I'll show you why in a second. First of all, we'll take a look here. We'll sort this again by domination index. There we go. And it takes a second. My apologies. It's because there's so much data in this. I really should look towards using actual data tools beyond just Excel because, meh, Excel. We're talking about Hanshin and where they fit in. There they are. They're 19th place in the history of the Japan Central League, which is impressive. Now you can see all the Yomiuri/Tokyo Giants who are all over the place. But that's a very good finish for Hanshin, and they did very well, winning their first World Series or Japan Series since 1985. And I do believe it's time that we have an actual World Series, but anyway, we'll talk about that later. Now, if we scroll down and we look for our 2023 Chunichi team, they're not quite the worst team in the history of Japanese baseball. There they are right here. So they're in 403rd place out of 448 teams. They're down there. But they did okay. Their pitching wasn't too bad. In fact, the pitching was a little bit better than average. This is probably because they have a pitcher's park. Having said that, if we go here and we sort, not by that, but we sort instead by the runs scored standard deviation going down, what we'll see will be very interesting. I did a video on this a little while ago. I don't know that it got a whole ton of attention, but most videos talking about geeky stuff don't get that much attention. Chunichi, though, in terms of just raw offense without adjusting for ballpark factor, had the worst offense relative to the league in the history of Japanese baseball this past season, which is saying a lot. And it wasn't a team that was all that good otherwise. So something is going on there offensively. It's bad. If you hate watching offense, go watch them. They're the Iowa of Japanese baseball. Great. Go over here to the Japan Pacific League, and we'll just go through this quickly here to make sure that we finish things up. Again, we're going to organize this by year. And we'll go ahead and just flip this on down. We need to scroll up a little bit. It's a little bit harder to figure out the way to name these teams because a lot of these teams have rather long names, and it can be difficult to know. They're not named so much after cities as much as they are after companies in the Pacific League. Oryx, the Buffaloes, though, ended up with the most dominating season of the year, and then they almost won the Japan Series going to the 7th game. There was no particularly bad team. And see, what happens here when you only have 6 teams in the league is you see that spread, the domination spread, for the most part, generally is not quite as extreme. You'll notice this if you just look at the raw numbers, and if you look at the standard deviation numbers as well. I mean, if you compare this to like the standard deviation for the 2023 American League, it's a lot different, right? In Japan, we're talking about teams that more or less are playing the same way. Could actually be a whole bunch of reasons behind that, but just something to look on into. Oryx with a 2.088, we're not going to look into it, but it was definitely not necessarily one of the greatest of all time, but still pretty interesting to look at, interesting to think about. So there you go. Now, I'll tell you something about this. If you're really interested in this sort of statistic, come check out the blog. There's a link below. If you want to play around with this spreadsheet, all paying subscribers to my blog have access to it. It costs $5 a month. We keep it low price and keep it so that it's not too cumbersome. It's not that hard to stick all this stuff together. It's a lot of fun, though, in terms of the analysis you can do. This isn't advanced sabermetrics, right? It's pretty simple. It's something that people can understand, but it's a nice, quick, and dirty way of looking at the greatest and not so greatest teams of all time. And yeah, we really need to talk about the Dodgers over the last 6 or 7 years, because they've had a dynasty the likes of which we have never seen before in the history of baseball. So we'll talk about that later. I'll talk with you later. Bye.